Okay, for our poster, we did in fact use Photoshop. However, I'm going to use an online version called Pixlr.com to try to show you how I recreated our film poster. First of all, I coloured in the background black with a soft edged brush so that there weren't any harsh lines or anything, and to create a much darker photo. So that creates a very dark image. What I then did was I increased the contrast of the photograph so that areas became much darker as well, and then also decreased the saturation so it was almost completely unsaturated, almost black and white, but not quite, just to give that sort of dead looking effect. There is also a tool on here which unfortunately isn't available, which is a patch tool that I used, which basically enables me to select the eye here and drag it over to where a bit of my hair was, and then created a very interesting effect and made the eye all black, which is the effect that you see in our actual poster. And it just enabled us to create a really interesting effect of that. However, I'm going to try and achieve the same effect by using the paintbrush here, decreasing the opacity, also the size of the brush, and just going over the eye here to make it a bit darker. Also, to create the dark effect under the eye, I used a very similar technique. I used this drip tool here to select the dark area of my face so it got that colour. Then selected the paintbrush, again decrease the opacity a lot, possibly make the brush a bit smaller as well, to about that diameter, and then go underneath here just to gradually make it darker underneath the eyes to create that sort of tired looking effect. Again, that would have been done many times, possibly increase the opacity a bit to make it a bit darker, a bit quicker. Just continuously making it dark to make a very tired, solemn look to the person here. And then where the lips are, I would have got a very dark red colour, like that. Again, opacity very low, and then I would have just gone around the lips like this, then made the red possibly even darker. Just to give it that sort of gory effect of blood around the mouth. Now, to create the two in the neck here, what I would have done is I would have made a very harsh edged brush, again used a very dark red here, and scratched here. Oh, meant to increase the opacity to about 100%, possibly make that brush even smaller, and just scratching a 2 into the neck. Would have then used a black and gone over that. Then select the red again and decrease the opacity a lot. Increase the brush size a little bit. And then just continuously go over the 2 with the low opacity. And what that will eventually do is it will build up a scratch type of effect that you see in our poster. That makes it look like the 2 is actually carved into her skin. After that, what I did was I used the text box tool here to create some text. The font, I made sure it was the same font used on all of it. and then obviously just typed it in with the colour. So that's basically how we achieved it. Obviously it took a lot longer than I've done it now. But conventions that we were trying to fit in with was the very sort of dark and gory effect via the lips, the eyes looking very solemn. We didn't use our first idea of the poster with the two in between, which I'll show you is here. We didn't use this one because although the effect is quite nice because it connotes the split personality and everything, we thought that it looked quite unprofessional. It just, the blurring of it all just didn't really link into the typical conventions, and we wanted to keep with the conventions of horror, the horror genre, due to the fact that it makes our audience feel comfortable, so we wanted to comply to those conventions. Also, the change of saturation is a bit too drastic. On one side she's very light and on the other side she's very dark and solemn, so it doesn't really quite fit. Plus the two in it is a bit too red. Those are little things that we could have changed, but we just thought that overall it probably wouldn't have worked. There's just an example of me of how I created the half of the face again here with the low opacity and carry on. So we took the general idea from that and applied it to the poster. This was our second idea. We had a bit of blurring on the face, and the two you can see is starting to look like it's scratched in, but it's not quite. So we're just getting the general techniques of it all here. Plus the lips are very normal. She doesn't look scary enough, we didn't think, and it sort of had a quite unprofessional feel to it, and we were using very professional technology that people do use Photoshop in the industry, and we just thought that we needed to up our standard. We then decided to look at posters such as Host and Wreck that sort of used similar colours to ours and very sort of sharp images, like the black and the red. We also looked at Hatchet here because we did also want to include some white because it sort of connotes the other half of our character, who's very happy and very honest. So here is starting to become our trailer. We looked at it. We were quite happy with it at this point. However, you can see that there are some faults, like the 15 certificate here is sort of touching the edges, so it's not quite in enough to look professional. The font, the small font at the bottom, isn't very professional looking. So again, we had to look back on these posters here and have a look at how they did it. And there's the most important information that they obviously want the audience to see is written in bigger font, and then it goes back into smaller font and then bigger font again, or just all the small print. And the font is very quite slim and tall. So we sort of messed around with different fonts on Photoshop and came up with this. We dragged the 15 in a bit closer. We then included some of the film distribution companies who we felt could possibly distribute our film. We then had important information written a bit bigger. We decided to put out the website for our film on the bottom as well, and the release date. Just a few little tweaks, and we were quite happy with the standard of our poster after that. And we feel that it was created in quite a simple but very effective way. It took us a little while to get there, but we got there in the end, and we feel extremely happy with it, and we've had very positive feedback from lots of people. And yeah.